1995. He played with Coach Josetti and Coach Conradson, who are on our staff, and Coach Chukas. He was on a state championship team. He was a wide receiver and a defensive back, and was truly an interesting and lively source on our team. He was not only a source of inspiration, but he was a source of humor. He went on to play football at St. Norbert's, and is currently working down in the Chicago area as well. Without further ado, Tim Kelly.
Thanks, Vance. I apologize up front. I was intending to be able to read this from memory, but I think I hit that cocktail bar a little too hard. So I might be reading a lot of this to you guys, so bear with me. I just want to clear something up real fast for those of you that know Coach Kelly well. You probably might be a little confused right now, because as I'm sure you know, when Terry played college ball, you know, he was a thick 5'8", 220-pound pulling guard, whereas myself and my two brothers, we were all wide receivers. The contrast in both the skills and the mindset for those two positions is staggering. There's probably no greater polar opposites on the football field than a wideout and a lineman. So while I know in my heart of hearts that my real dad must be some extremely athletic mailman, he must be some extremely athletic mailman roaming the streets of New Berlin. For the sake of tonight, I will continue the myth that Terry is in fact our real father. Now, when Matt's called me up on Thursday asking if I want to say a few words, I gotta say, I jumped at the chance. I figured the only other opportunity I might be able to have to speak on my dad's behalf would be at his funeral. For some reason, I just thought it might be better if you were here to face the music. I'd like to thank Maz again for calling me on a Thursday. About 48 hours notice to write a speech. Despite that, I actually found that once I got started, things really started to flow. After a few short hours, I had a solid 30 to 40 pages of material. When I ran into Coach Basham last night at the game, he asked that I keep my remarks short. So unfortunately, I had to cut a few things from my expose on my father. So among the chapters that we will not be discussing tonight are the following. Fashion in football is plaid the new black. Advancements in modern dentistry. A lineman's guide to picking up women. How big is too big? And last but not least, how to succeed in life with a face made for radio. Now, I know a lot of you still might be struggling with the fact, trying to figure out, how someone as handsome as myself related to Terry Kelly. And I really don't want that concept to, be in your heads, and you might struggle with the rest of my speech. So I figured a few visual aids might help out with, just letting you know that the genetic link is a little bit more believable. So you can just hold on a second. You've seen me strip before. You hold this push back? A few things to put on here. Listen here. See, these are prescription. Yep. Last but not least. Buckle up, Terry. Since imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, I figured that my speech tonight should mimic the three subjects that my dad has taught here at MUHS: history, English, and psychology. So for the next couple of minutes, if you don't mind, I kindly ask that you imagine that you're on a shortened school day here today, during which we will attend 3 classes. First class is history. Now, tonight's events are winding down. I'm not going to bore you with the entire story of Terry Kelly. But since this is a history class, I figured nothing says history more than a nice black and white photo. I'm actually going to ask my dad to hold this up just so we don't see his face the whole time. Hopefully it's not too dark, everyone can see it. I want you all to take it in. He's quite the specimen. Now the funniest thing actually about this picture is that that's not his football uniform. No, I remember that my grandpa, he'd always used to tell me that Terry was a special kind of kid growing up. Apparently he was a little slow-witted. He'd wander into traffic. He'd occasionally pick up dirt clods from the yard and eat them. I guess at the end, my grandparents just thought that it was best for everyone involved that Terry wear a helmet 24/7. Love my grandparents. I just only wish they had the foresight that they also made sure they wear a mouth guard. So, to history. Tonight's an interesting night as it reflects on my dad's entire coaching career at Marquette. Many people would view 31 years in the coaching industry as a lifetime. In my case, that statement could not be truer. For as long as I've been alive, my dad has coached Marquette High football. I've been at Marquette High games as a comatose infant. I've been in the stands as a first grader with Coach Basham's daughter Kim cutting up confetti in the anticipation of the next touchdown. I've watched games from the sideline as both a water boy and a ball boy. I watched games from the student section as an underclassman, and I eventually saw them up close as a player. Yet for me, I never really appreciated the arduous task that my dad had until I attended those games as an alumnus. Up until that point, the only football coaching I had known was from the Kelly Basham School of Thought. As I'm sure many of you can attest, there were very few losses at that school. It wasn't until I was on my college team that I finally realized what a difference good coaching could make. My college team was absolutely horrible. And while the talent pool there wasn't as good as Marquette's, obviously, you would still think that some coaches would be able to make the most of it. For my 4 years at St. Norbert's, I was absolutely amazed at the stark contrast in coaching styles between overpaid college coaches and men basically coaching for peanuts while putting in close to 40 hours a week on football in addition to the regular teaching duties. Coaching techniques that I had come to accept as commonplace simply vanished. I was pretty confused. Why weren't my college coaches up all night poring over hours of film? Why weren't they busy after practice, perhaps working individually with a player who might not fully understand a play or a situation? Why aren't they ensuring that some of the athletes who were struggling in school weren't getting all the proper tutoring they needed? All of a sudden, concepts that I never once stopped to appreciate just 4 years earlier were now the very things that my current team was lacking. Because of this, from a purely football perspective, attending those Marquette games while I was in college was one of the most refreshing things I could do. Since I was a little older and possibly a bit more mature, I was really able to take into consideration the entire scope of what my father had accomplished to that point and appreciate what he had done and would continue to do for 13 more seasons. When talking about the history of the teams my dad has helped coach, I'm sure we can all rattle off some impressive stats, both team and individual. We can recount all the past achievements, the great defenses he coached, and the ugliest lineman awards he spawned. In fact, what has become one of the greatest pastimes in the Kelly household, at least between my brother Brian and I, is whose high school team was better. Much to my mother's chagrin, there have been several holiday meals ruined because of this debate. I'd say it's been that way for about the past 15 years or so. In the time we've compared my team's stats to his team's stats, my team's record to his team's record, it was just nuts. It got so involved that one Thanksgiving, we actually went position by position, imagining, the sort of the all-decade team between our two teams. We decided who would play, someone from my team or someone from his team. It actually got pretty involved that we started using utensils and condiments and trying to diagram the lineups right on the table there. I think we agreed that we'd use Brian's running backs, Tim Bonk and Greg McThomas. They were represented by corn cob holders. I think we were going to use that my quarterback, Jake Giuseppe, he was represented on the table as a pepper mill. It was pretty detailed. And throughout all these debates, nothing constructive ever really seemed to materialize. Except for one thing. While we were busy going down the line, position by position, kind of patting ourselves on our back, we realized that there was one position that never got debated, and that was the coaches. It seems pretty bizarre that during the countless discussions my brother and I were having, we never stopped to consider the one constant variable that both our teams had: great coaching. While the unmatched successes that we experienced at Marquette were great, it was also a little unfortunate. I say that because when winning becomes such a standard, such a norm, anything less always pales in comparison. My brother and I were guilty of overlooking that fact, as I'm sure a lot of players and a lot of parents have done over the years as well. Everyone got so accustomed to winning that I can't imagine the burden that was placed on both my father and Coach Basham, knowing what high expectations everyone had of them. It's not to say that both men didn't have equally high expectations of themselves. I just wish a little bit undue stress could have been shelved a couple of times, so the two of them could really sit back and enjoy their success as much as everyone else in this room probably had.